If you're like me from a couple years ago, you know that taking good notes and using flashcards are both strategies you can use to learn something. But for a long time, I had no idea when one was better than the other. And flashcards sounded boring as heck. So I stuck mostly to taking linked notes in Obsidian and did practically no flashcards ever. However, after researching the differences between note-taking and flashcards, I now understand how they can fit together to make you go Super Saiyan. I know how to use flashcards to memorize effectively and not waste time. In this video, I'm going to explore why you should use flashcards, how flashcards and note-taking fit together, when not to use flashcards, major traps to avoid when using flashcards, my best tips for making flashcards, and how to use flashcards without wasting hours of time. By the end of this video, you're gonna be a flashcard aficionado, a flashcard pirate, a flashcard whiz. Make sure you stick around to the end because I share my biggest flashcard secret to save hours of time later on. Firstly, why should you use flashcards? For a long time, I had an aversion to using flashcards. I saw them as a form of rote learning, repeated repetition without care for understanding. Now I understand that we should use flashcards for 4 main reasons. Firstly, memory in a field facilitates new learning. The more associations we have in our brain for a given topic, the more associations new knowledge has to stick to. As a result, it's easier to educate ourselves when we have an initial network of facts to connect new information to. For example, author Lynn Kelly describes in her book Memorycraft that by memorizing all the world's countries, she gave herself a sticky foundation from which to attach new memories. Whenever she hears the news, reads books, or learns from friends, she has a memory foundation she can hook information on. Since flashcards are one of the best ways to memorize something, they can facilitate new learning. Secondly, memorization doesn't hurt understanding. It aids it. When you use mnemonic techniques effectively alongside flashcards, which I'll get to later, you facilitate a greater understanding of the material. Many mnemonic techniques require you to transform the information from one mode, say writing, to another. And transferring that modality of a piece of information facilitates your understanding of it. If used in the right way, flashcards can help facilitate understanding of information. Thirdly, flashcards facilitate long-term memory of something. Unfortunately, humans are tubes of meat, which have evolved to forget knowledge we don't apply. The rate at which we forget information was first studied and encapsulated in Hermann Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve. According to this curve, we forget most information in the 24 hours after consuming something, and slowly forget more and more over ensuing weeks, months, and years without recall practice. But if we routinely recall information we want to remember, we can fight the forgetting curve through a technique known as spaced repetition. Flashcards are a form of recall practice, and when combined with spaced repetition, can cause you to remember things for the rest of your life. Finally, they're just plain fun to use. If you could use them alongside the memory techniques I discuss later, then they can actually be quite a joy. Flashcards don't have to be the word-only boring things you associate them with. They can be filled with images, stories, colors, and more. They can bring joy to your learning. So how do flashcards and note-taking fit together? Note-taking is better for fostering understanding of a conceptually tricky or new topic, understanding how a small part of a topic fits into the bigger picture, creating meaningful connections between ideas, and if you want to write something about a topic. Flashcards are better for memorizing information, saving time because they generally take less time to make than notes, and if knowledge is already chunked together. When not to use flashcards. If you don't yet understand something conceptually, if you're learning something that requires lots of real hands-on practice, like in the case of language learning, not all of your practice should be with flashcards, but speaking with actual people who use that language. And finally, if you don't need to have something fully memorized. Major traps to avoid when using flashcards. Firstly, using off-the-shelf flashcard decks. These are genuinely less effective than making or editing your own, as the making of flashcards themselves not only puts them in your own words, but ensures that you understand the context the flashcard is asked in. Another mistake is memorizing information that is use, which stands for useless, self-explanatory, or easy enough to memorize on the spot. Poorly designed flashcards can lead to memorizing useless information or failing to learn what you care about. Next, not incorporating some form of mnemonic into your flashcards. Making vague flashcards with multiple answers, or overloading flashcards with too much information. Flashcards should be concise and focus on specific concepts or facts. Another mistake is using flashcards without another studying technique like practice questions, writing, or the Feynman technique. Another big mistake is avoiding active recall, flipping over the flashcard the second you don't know the answer. It defeats the purpose of a flashcard. It's meant to make you actively retrieve a piece of information rather than passively do so. Another mistake is not combining flashcards with spaced repetition, and also failing to adapt and update flashcards as your knowledge and understanding of a topic evolve. It's essential to update or modify your flashcards accordingly. Tips for creating great flashcards. First, create your own. Just like building your own epic civilization in Civilization 6, or constructing intricate structures in Terraria, creating your own flashcards allows you to tailor them to your specific needs. Most off-the-shelf decks are about as helpful as a wooden sword against a creeper in Minecraft, and this is because they aren't worded in a way that you understand, and you don't understand the original context they were made in. That being said, some fairly standardized topics like medicine do have some great flashcard decks made by the community, which you can use as a foundation and then tailor to your needs. Create enumerations. Enumerations are things listed in order, whereas sets are things listed without order. Humans are way better at remembering lists than remembering randomly ordered things. So when creating your flashcards, try to group knowledge into meaningful lists. Let's say you're studying the different biomes in Minecraft. I definitely have not done this. Instead of creating flashcards with random information about each biome, you can group them into meaningful lists like this. Flashcard 1, biomes of Minecraft. The question could be, what are the biomes found in Minecraft? And the answer could be forest, desert, plains, taiga, jungle, savanna, tundra, mushroom island, ocean, river, etc. By listing the biomes in a specific order, you create a structured and meaningful enumeration. This allows your brain to grasp the overall pattern and remember the individual elements more effectively. Study both sides. This isn't always necessary, but particularly for topics where you might need to know both sides of a card, like language learning, you should consider studying with both sides of the flashcard. The question side tests your knowledge, while the answer side solidifies your understanding. Conquer both sides and you'll level up your learning prowess. Use tags for exam and specific topics. Tags help you quickly locate relevant flashcards when preparing for exams or focusing on specific topics. For example, in the leading up to a big exam, I like to group all of my flashcards for a class by tag and study them in one big spree. This is generally much easier to do with digital flashcards, which is why I like using digital flashcard apps for my studying. Have one simple fact or question per side. Keep each flashcard simple and focused, like a straightforward quest objective in your favorite video game. One fact or question per side ensures clarity and prevents confusion when creating flashcards. You should ask yourself if yourself a couple of months from now will understand what you're saying. Say the answer out loud before turning it over. Before unveiling the answer side of your flashcard, channel your inner Minecraft Steve and proudly shout out the answer. This forces you to actively recall the information rather than looking at the flashcard, deluding yourself into thinking you know it, and then turning it over prematurely. Too often, when people don't know the answer to a flashcard, they immediately turn it over. Learning should feel hard, so give yourself at least 15 seconds before deciding you don't know the answer to something. Use a spaced repetition system. Flashcards' power level goes up drastically if you combine them with spaced repetition, which is the act of repeatedly reviewing your flashcards over time at more and more spaced out intervals. With flashcards, you can use SRS after reviewing a flashcard and asking how well you knew the information. The better you know it, the longer you wait until you review it again. The worse you know it, the earlier you review it again. This ensures that you revisit information just when you're about to forget it, reinforcing your memory with each encounter and fighting the forgetting curve mentioned earlier. In effect, by spacing out your reviews, you can get information into long-term memory forever. Add links back to the original context, including references, keywords, or hints that link back to the source material helps you in the case you don't understand a flashcard later on. If you come across a flashcard you don't understand, you can go back to the original context to facilitate understanding. But this is hard to do with physical flashcards, and most flashcard apps don't allow you to do this. If you want an awesome spaced repetition app that does allow you to link back to the original context, you should check out iDoRecall. iDoRecall is a spaced repetition flashcard app with the awesome ability to let you go back to the source you made a flashcard from while doing the flashcard if you forget. I'm biased because I have been working with iDoRecall over the past weeks to gamify and improve their app, but I genuinely would use their app even if I wasn't. It has tons of other powerful capabilities I haven't seen as well integrated into other flashcard apps like redaction mode, which lets you seamlessly create flashcards from images, a web clipper that lets you make flashcards on the web, and a Notion and soon to come out Obsidian plugin that allows you to create flashcards out of your notes, as well as send highlights from iDoRecall's library of articles and videos you have consumed to your note-taking apps, just like Readwise does. The best part is it's completely free for the first 200 flashcards you make, and you can sign up with my iDoRecall link in the description below and use the discount code AidenFriend15% for a 15% discount. The ultimate flashcard tip, use mnemonic techniques. Possibly the greatest of all the flashcard tips is to add mnemonics to your flashcards. Mnemonic techniques are strategies for remembering things that have ties back to our hunter-gatherer ancestors who used the memory palace techniques to memorize entire knowledge systems filled with thousands of plant and animal species. Gone are the days of word-only flashcards that make you want to die. Mnemonic techniques add a bit of spunk, fun, pizzazz to your learning and your flashcards. There are so many mnemonic techniques that you can incorporate into your learning, but I'll talk about some of the most powerful ones here, which are acronyms, the story method, the metaphor, and the memory palace. So let's go about some examples of flashcards that incorporate these techniques. First, we have acronyms, which we'll see in an example of the humanities. Let's say we wanted to remember the concepts of the colors of the visible light spectrum. Well, there is a very well-known acronym for this, which is ROY-G-BIV. And if we wanted to create a flashcard for it, we could have one that says, what are the colors in the visible light spectrum? And the answer could be ROY-G-BIV, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Then we have the story method, which we'll also see through a humanities example. Let's say we wanted to remember the chronological order of literary movements. So the question could be, what are the key literary movements in chronological order? And the answer could be us picturing ourselves walking through a grand library filled with diverse books. And as we explore, we encounter unique rooms, each representing a different literary movement. It is the going through each of these rooms that creates a story which we can use to remember the literary movements. So say in room 1, we have the Romanticists. Imagine a room adorned with vibrant paintings of picturesque landscapes where poets and hearts filled with passion gather to celebrate the beauty of nature and explore intense emotions. Room 2 could have the Realists. Enter a room with shelves full of books depicting ordinary people in realistic settings, revealing the raw and unadorned truth of society and human experience. Room 3 could have the Modernists. Step into a room pulsating with abstract art, fragmented narratives, and unconventional poetry. Here, artists and writers challenge traditional norms and experiment with innovative forms of expression, and so on through all the rooms. We remember the flashcard so much better because we have a story of the literary movements in our mind as we go through it. What about metaphor? Let's use a STEM concept, which could be understanding the structure of the atom. Our flashcard would be, what is the structure of the atom? And the answer could be, imagine an atom as a tiny solar system. The nucleus is like the sun, and the electrons are like planets orbiting around it. A simple metaphor makes it so much easier to remember the flashcard and the concept later on. And then finally, the memory palace. The memory palace is an ancient mnemonic technique which makes us create images inside of locations that associate with the information we want to remember. So let's use a STEM concept as an example. Let's say we wanted to remember the steps of the scientific method. First, we choose a location that we wanted to put images representing the steps inside of, and then our flashcard could simply be the question, what are the steps of the scientific method? And our answer could be us going through our memory palace and then coming up with the steps. So some images could be maybe in room 1 of our memory palace, we have observation, and we could picture a large magnifying glass hanging on the wall, which represents the first step of the scientific method, where you carefully observe and gather information about a particular phenomenon or problem. Room 2 could be research. We could imagine a bookshelf filled with books in each room, and each book symbolizes the extensive research we conduct to gather existing knowledge and background information related to our scientific inquiry. Room 3 could be hypothesis, where we visualize a light bulb suspended from the ceiling, and the light bulb represents the eureka moment when we formulate a hypothesis, a bright idea that proposes a possible explanation or solution to a problem that we're investigating. And we could go so on to room 6, all the way through the steps of the scientific method. Integrating mnemonic techniques like these into our flashcards, and we will make them not only more effective, but so much more fun. You can check out another video I've made on the ultimate guide to creating a memory palace up above if you want to learn more. How to use flashcards without wasting hours of time. One of flashcards' most common big complaints is that they can take so long to use. Ingraining something into long-term memory can take as much as 4 to 5 separate retrieval practices of that flashcard at spaced intervals. How can we use flashcards without wasting hours of time? Ask yourself, do you need to create flashcards? The first thing I recommend is knowing whether you're in a situation where flashcards are the best learning method. Ask yourself, do I already understand this information? Is this not useless, self-explanatory, or easy enough to memorize on the spot? Is this knowledge I'm memorizing already chunked together? Do I need to memorize this? If the answer to all of these is yes, creating flashcards might be a great option to learn. Create flashcards during class. Another of my personal ultimate flashcard hacks is to make them during class instead of taking notes. I did this for all of my classes in my Introduction to Nutrition Science class at Cornell, and I never had to sit down to study for more than an hour or take notes outside of class. I saved tens of hours worth of effort and time just by doing this. However, this only works in classes high in memorization and low in conceptual understanding, like the later parts of med school and this class that I referred to. So it might not work in your engineering classes, for example. Prioritize weaker areas. Another great tip is to prioritize weaker areas. Identify what areas you're weak in a subject matter and create more flashcards for those areas over other subjects. This ensures that you don't waste your time memorizing tons of information you don't need to. Make it a habit. The more you ingrain creating and doing flashcards into your everyday life, the less you'll have to study flashcards in massive batches, and the more you'll remember in the long run. So make flashcard creation a habit. Here's some easy places you could integrate flashcards. Between sets at the gym, during your morning coffee, eating meals alone, walking to class, waiting in line, bathroom breaks, before bedtime, and more. The magic of memorizing effectively with flashcards and not wasting time. Flashcards can be one of the most powerful study techniques you have in your toolkit if you use them effectively. By understanding when and when not to use flashcards, the principles of creating good flashcards, and how to do flashcards without wasting tons of time, I hope you can uncover their inner magic like I did. If you'd like to get I Do Recall and have a flashcard app yourself, once again, you can go in the description below and get 15% off using my discount code. But you can also use it for free for up to 200 flashcards. And if you'd like to learn more about how to create a memory palace, check out my ultimate guide to creating a memory palace up above. As always, have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye-bye.